The devil part as well. One thing that I'm starting to find is the more I look at African spirituality and African culture, there is no concept of this one being all evil spirit.
Yeah.
There is ideas of pathways that people take. Someone may look at the mother that has to lift a car up full of children in order to save her children as an evil person because those children may have to die. But then essentially she might be justified for what she's doing. So with the devil concept, again, for me, and the whole hell concept, you could read Dr. Carver's book, Spirituality Before Religions, and it will tell you about, I think it's the book of Coming Forth Day and Coming Forth of Night, and he described the whole judgment process that a lot of the ancient pharaohs used to basically depict from the Medinetta. So Medinetta is basically the hieroglyphs. All they are aspects of the creator. So they're not gods. We don't, they never worshipped a godhead bird, the man, half, like it's not.
Yeah, look, the ancient Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, they knew that the concept of, it wasn't a God outside of themselves, it was the concept of the God within. It was the concept of their sovereign beings, that they are powerful there, you know what I mean? So it was that concept, it was from the inside out rather than the outside in. The whole concept was just, it was a different concept, That's why they could create things that even now with our technology we can't create.
Exactly that. And you have to look at that and say to yourself, why were they able to do that? Again, there was no constraints on the aspects of limitations of what they can do. So for me, I feel like when I look at festivals like the what's the Mexican Day of the Dead festival, you've got the Oshun or Ogon festival in Japan, Beast Festival and Halloween as well. They all worship the dead. I know Halloween is more to do with the Druids in the Celtic sort of belief system, and then obviously I think it's in worship of Samhain, which is like this demon sort of thing that allows all these spirits to roam free and whatever. But for me, if we celebrate death more, or I feel like if we will be able to come to terms with things more easier, do you think we should celebrate death more as humans in terms of like just knowing that, okay, cool, it's not our business and what goes on in the afterlife, but we can celebrate their life here. So when it does happen and they do transition, the mourning, the crying, because you can see death really, if it's not understood, it really breaks a person. Like it really moves a person.
Yeah, well, it's, look, mourning, right? So after I died, like, because of the work, that I do, I thought, okay, I went through my process. When I say my process, I made sure during my mourning, I did not escape my emotions through anything like alcohol. I mean, I don't smoke anymore, whatever, but I didn't escape through food, through alcohol, through watching, nothing. I sat with the emotions. So really important, so I could process it. I wanted to process it without delay, if that makes sense, because people suppress it or whatever. So I wanted to process it. And again, the whole mourning thing is like, I was crying, I was missing him, I was mourning him because of me. If you think about mourning, it's as selfish, you're thinking about yourself, you're not thinking of the other person. He was suffering. Mourning is really a very selfish thing. And once we understand it's about us, not about them, they've gone. So the whole suffering thing is part of the human experience. The pain is part of the human body. If we are, some people say we are vessels for a soul or, whatever. Well, then if the vessels, they're not there, that means the energy is just so it's not suffering. This, like, we as humans, even our vision is very limited. We don't even see all the colors that there are certain animals like bumblebees and stuff, they see colors of the spectrum we can't see with our eye. And so for us to think that we know everything and we know what happens after death, and this religion, no, that religion has monopoly on death, they know what happens, and all this stuff. If we were to see the truth of it, like you said, ask yourself, Ask yourself. Some people, again, if they're in their ego, they're like, yes, I do want people to cry. I want people to mourn for me. Okay, that's fine. Up in your ego. But really, once all that dies down, would you want every time for somebody to remember you? Would you want them to think of either how you've suffered or how sad it is that you've gone? Or would you want them to talk about the great things that you've done? Would you want people to talk about you in that aspects of, the funny stories maybe, or what, life lessons you taught them, or just stories about your life? How would you want people? And I know for me, I would want people to talk about the good things that I've done, maybe the stupid things that I've done, but I would want them to, the legacy of my life to be something that inspires them, not something that scares them, limits them, makes them come down into despair and depression. I wouldn't want that, just so think about just for yourself, And also it's interesting what you say about the celebration of death. Like, when we really look at it, most of these people they're not celebrating death when they go to they're escaping. It's fun. They escape. Humans will do anything for escapism. They live to escape. So when you talk about like truth versus their perception of reality, two different things, right? The truth is, when someone dies, we don't know what happens. Now, someone's perception of death is going to make them experience things in different ways. I had members of the family calling me, we're praying. Oh my God, we're just praying he's not in hell. We're just praying he doesn't go to hell. I mean, he was a good person, he was a good person. I mean, I was just like they've called me to give me condolences, but they're like, we're praying here that he will be in heaven, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like comforting them. My dad's just died. I'm comforting now. Or my cousin, I haven't spoken to him in like over 5 years, calling him my phone, crying. Oh my God, how am I supposed to live now that my uncle's dead? Oh my God, he loved me more than anyone. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, oh, how am I supposed to live now? How am I supposed to live? Like they're screaming down the phone. How am I supposed to live? And I was like, the same way you've lived for the last 5 years without speaking to him, seeing how he is, seeing how we are, like you didn't even check for him for 5 years. Now you're like crying, your eyes are screaming how you're gonna live. Like, it's because of it makes them think about their mortality. They're selfish. Again, their mourning is selfish for them. It's an act. Does that make sense? So the same thing with these festivals. Let's be honest, most people that celebrate Halloween, they like the pumpkins, they like dressing up, they like trick or treat, whatever. They like to go to a party. Escapism. They're not really celebrating death, really. Yeah. Even the Mexican festival is like, people, please, how much percentage? Maybe 1-2%, maybe less. I'll be generous and say maybe 10% of people are actually, celebrating, but really that it's about the escapism, the party. So again, and it's something, I just want to say something interesting that you mentioned earlier. You said something about when you have certain, like rituals when the dead, like when people die, that that you have to let the spirit go or something.
Yeah.
We don't have, you can't hold on to spirit when it's gone. When it's gone, it's gone. Go ahead, try hold on to spirit. Try. My first experience, right, of seeing a dead body was like my friend, his daughter, she was 14. She was hit by a truck and she died instantly. And he asked me to go and see the body with him. And I was like a bit taken back. I've never seen a body before. I was like, okay, of course. Yeah, your friend asked you to, of course you're not going to say no, so got over my shit, real quick. Of course I'll come, And when I saw her, it was like, the body's still there, same girl, but the energy, what you can call the soul, whatever you want to call it, right? That life force energy, that fit gone. And I was like, whoa, whatever, like this is the body, but that's gone. What she was, has like her spirit, soul, whatever it is, so it's like the same energy that gets, look, we're right now, you're in the UK, I'm in the US, but let's zoom out a little bit. We're on planet Earth, this ball that's spinning, it's got water on it, it's got land, it's got these different animals spinning in the middle of space, just rotating and going round the fireball, loads of stars, loads of planets. Like, we live in and people want to make more meaning out of that, but if there's no evidence, of certain things. You know, they want everything to have a meaning. They want to know who created this. We don't know. It was the Big Bang. No, it was God. No, it was both. No, it was this. It was ever. We don't know. Why can't that be okay? Why can't you be in the freedom that gives you in the truth? That truth gives you, leads you to free. We don't know. So yeah, some people prefer the comfort of there was a God, and when we die there's heaven or there's hell or whatever. But what if, just what if all of that, none of that is just what if? Because there's a story of there's this in Mesopotamia, like ancient Sumeria, there was these there were the high priestesses. So they knew that religion would control people through spiritual beliefs, and they knew if they combine that with the politics, they can control people, just as they do like in Islamic countries. Islam is not just a religion, it is a political ideology. These two are is in the but like it's like this, which is why a lot of Islamic countries, that's the government, because that's just, it's not religion, it's a political ideology. So this is why in certain countries, you know, they violate human rights. There are no human rights, let alone women's rights or animal rights, because they follow the book. They don't care about that stuff. The government has to follow that, right? So how that all started even is if you go back to ancient Sumeria, and it's like documented, they believed, so there was a stage where they were mainly worshipping female deities, female gods and things like that. Had a few male gods, but mainly it was a lot of women. And the high priestesses that they put in the temples, the high priestesses would be nieces, daughters, women that were related to the king, whoever was a conqueror, right? So they would put, because they knew if they have battle in this city and they wanted to know that these cities are under control too. So the temples of worship, they would put their daughters, nieces, what have you, right? Their female heir as high priestesses. And what they done through the temples is that this is where the center of all the civilization was, where they would bring, like, if it was, let's say, cattle, you know, being slaughtered for meat for people, crops, gold, that whatever, all the harvesting, everything would go to the temple, and they would distribute. They would have festivals. They would have these things, because people like festivals from time. People like to escape. They like to party, right? So they would make the wine. It was all done through the temple. And then this idea came that actually, and their belief was that death is part of nature. That was basically what it was. Yeah. Then the opposing belief came about. I can't remember how many years BC this was, like maybe 4,000 or something. Like, this is in clay tablets through poetry, by the way, like in Sumerian, like in clay tablets that's available like today. Yeah. So in those clay tablets in the poetry, they show how, like, they explain how the belief came about that this is not the end of your life, that there's an afterlife, and that depending if you're good or, like, this whole thing of the heaven and hell and the male patriarchy, this whole idea was, and there was a real battle during that time between no, our goddesses and whatever they believe in, their ideology for a long time was death is part of nature. And it's so interesting because even some of their festivals, they would dress half as women, half as men, to show that they are, you know, the yin and the yang, you know, the essence is, that's how they used the festivals. It's interesting, thousands of years ago, right? Because they didn't want to be limited through gender. They didn't want a gender. This is how powerful. And if you think of the Middle East now, where Sumeria is, good luck. Good luck if you're a woman and you think that without, you know, opposition, you're going to be able to rise up and do what certain things that they were doing thousands of years ago. So even that ideology came about, like, I don't know, the whole aspect of the male god and the heaven, hell, all that the story of, oh, there's an afterlife, don't worry, this is what happens in the afterlife. That came about before the main religions that we know now, because they're in the clay tablets when the whole battle was going on.
And you see, that's the thing. The clay tablets is proof. The hieroglyphics or the Medinetta is proof of sometimes not just the events, but also the mindset of how people are living. You see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's not evidence of the goddesses. That's just what they believe, but it's just evidence of their mindset, the ideologies, the laws. It's all documented how they used to distribute the food and how they used to bring everything to, like, it's all there, you know.
And that's what I try to explain to people when it comes to a lot of religion, a lot of African spirituality and cultures from the Middle East. Because even with the Middle East, I always tell people you have to understand the naming of certain things when it comes to our current, Western world view or map. There is no middle north, there is no middle south. The Middle East sits on the African tectonic plate. So the Persians that are there, these are Africans. Now, yes, Africans are not only just dark-skinned people. We come from so many different shades. So there's Africans that are like you, literally. And
Yeah, yeah.
people need to understand that, with culture, like you said, the mindset of people back then understood that, look, the ancient Egyptians understood that, look, hey, this is what we're dealing with. So we need to illustrate, these logos, I would say, or these illustrations of how, nature and God is. So when we're having a man with a falcon head, that's to represent to you, the all-foreseeing eye, the speed and light of the falcon, because the falcon bird itself is the only one that flies up high, aligns itself with the sun, and blocks out the sun in order to kill its prey. So small bird, it could be a pigeon or whatnot, but it swoops down so fast you can't even see it. So it's like they call it the all-foreseeing eye because of how it looks for its prey. But
Okay, okay.
you see where I'm coming from. So it uses the sun, and they wanted to use that concept as Haru or Horus to show people, that look, um, sometimes you have to accelerate yourself up, and when you get to a level of understanding, you'll be able to hit your target, or you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve. Same thing with Anubis. It's a jackal. Everyone was like, oh, it's the demon-headed dog, and it's no, the jackal, when it hunts its meat, its body hasn't got enough enzymes to digest the meat raw. So what it will do, it will bury it in the sand and wait for the sand, because of the heat, to cook it to a certain level, unbury it, and then it will eat it.
Oh
And now
wow.
that got to do with Anubis. Well, Anubis is the god of judgment, and he will be the better judge to know when the person has served their life. That's why, if you watched the hieroglyphics and some of the Medinetters, it's Anubis passing you through on a boat. You sit at the table with, so you sit at the, in front of Ra, and then basically they will have the scales, the heart, and the feather. So, but the ancient Egyptians didn't believe this as gospel. They're like, oh, hey, this is how we're seeing life, and this is how we want you guys to understand it. So you said something earlier when you was talking about the celebration of festivals, and it was very, very key when you said the whole escapism and the whole living with a lie. Now, for me, there's a lot of things that we know we're doing that could cause us an early death.